Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, one of my subscribers, Aaron Collins, sent an article to me about a tragedy that took place in Greece. And I just want to take some time to talk about this tragedy. So, you had an African American man by the name of Bakari Henderson. This is a promising young man with a bright future ahead of him. He had just graduated from college. He was in the process of setting up a fashion business, a clothing line. So he went to Greece with some friends to take photographs to promote his clothing line. And he went to this bar. And after he went to this bar, a horrible tragedy unfolded. So he went to the bar. He was with these friends. Most of the people were white, if not all the people he was hanging out with were white. So he goes to the bar. He orders some drinks, and he sits the drinks on a table that is already occupied by a group of white Serbians. So these people are upset because this brother put his drinks on their table, according to the reports that I read. These people proceed to break those bottles and then use the broken bottle as weapons to threaten this brother. They eventually chase this brother outside of this bar. And they slam him against a car. They proceed to punch and kick him. He suffers severe head injuries, resulting in his death. So this brother is dead, a brother with a promising future ahead of him. And, at first there were some reports about how this fight unfolded because of some selfies. Somebody was trying to take a selfie photograph with a waitress at this particular bar. That's what they claim at first. But according to his friends, they were doing nothing wrong. They simply set their drinks on a table, and from there, events unfolded. So while this brother is getting beat to death, literally being kicked and punched to death, his white friends that came with him, his white friends that he took all these pictures with, his white friends that claimed to be so inspired by his example, these white friends sat by while this brother was killed, while this brother was lynched. And right now they're saying that there's no evidence right now that's been presented that this is necessarily a race issue. That's what they claim, but we know better. Here you have a black man in Europe, dealing with a group of Serbs, who were involved in this incident. And we already know about the history of the Serbs and what they did in terms of the persecution of Muslims, in terms of racist attitudes that they have. So they beat this brother, and his friends did nothing. The white liberals that loved this brother so much that he grew up with, these people he hung out with, these people who were supposed to be his friends, they sat by and watched this brother get beaten to death. And after this brother was beaten severely, kicked and punched all over his body and the head and all that kind of stuff, then his friend wants to come by and try to give him some assistance. After waiting for the danger to leave, his friend tries to help him. That is not a friend. Those people are not real friends. I mean, where I come from, if you're with a group, if you're down with some people, if they're your friends, they're supposed to be your ride or die buddies or something like that, your people. If you get into a fight, they all get into a fight. An attack on one is an attack on all. Just like NATO's slogan, attack on one is an attack on all. That's how people ride in the hood, the so-called hood. That's how brothers roll. If you put your hands on one of us, you put your hands on all of us. And all of us are in it. All of us are going to fight to protect our brother. But these people sat by and watched this brother get beaten to death. And I just think that this is a metaphor for a lot of these people who claim to be our friends, who claim to be so down with us. These white liberals and even white conservatives, they don't have any love for you like that. If they really loved this brother, they would have been down for this brother. They would have protected this brother. But instead, they sat there and watched his brother get beaten to death. A modern day lynching. And this reminds me of a song that Mos Def had, back in the day on his first album, Black on Both Sides, entitled Mr. Nigger, where he talked about how you travel abroad, they got world nigger law. So no matter where you go from the United States to Europe, a place that people tell you is so liberal, so tolerant, so understanding, you go there and you're still treated like a second-class person. You're still treated like you're less than human. You're still attacked and disrespected. This brother was, for all intents and purposes, lynched. This is a modern day lynching. Here we are in 2017, and our people are still being killed at the hands of these white people. And it's just outrageous, man. It's just outrageous that his friends did nothing. These people that claim to love him so much. These people who claim to be inspired by him so much. And, this whole thing just makes me think about, like, there were allegations that this may have been over some selfie photograph with some waitress. At first they said something about how one of the Serbians may have been trying to take a picture with the waitress, and there was a problem with that. Like, she may not have wanted him to take the picture. Or perhaps, they were saying initially that Bakari was trying to take a photograph with this waitress or whatever. And, I don't know what happened, but from what I hear, that wasn't the case. But if it was the case, this reminds me of that whole Emmett Till situation, where you had this brother, Emmett Till, allegedly whistle at a white woman. And for that, that brother was beaten beyond recognition and thrown in a river. Just for whistling at a white woman. And here we have a situation where some people were saying that this may have been all about taking photographs with a white waitress. If that's the case, this is another example of a lynching of a black man based on his interactions with a white woman. And, this should be like if that's the case, and there are photographs of this guy with this white woman and all that kind of stuff on the internet. And from what I understand, the white woman that he's in a photograph with is a childhood friend. I don't know if they were in any relationship, and that's separate from this issue of the waitress. But if it has to do with the waitress, and more likely than not it's a white waitress, then this is just another example of a black man being lynched for his interactions with a white woman. If that's the case. And it's like, it's like by now I think that black men should have learned to leave the white woman alone. Some of our people are literally dying to be with a white woman, to be in the presence of a white woman. And, it's just a horrible tragedy, man. And it's like you would think that by now we would have learned something. You would think that by now, after all this history, after all these problems, then we would have learned something by now. Not out of fear for danger from these white people, but out of love for ourselves. But it appears that this brother, grew up in an all-white environment, which is problematic in and of itself, man. You're growing up with white people who don't have any real compassion for you, obviously. They let this brother be beaten to death. You grow up in these environments where you're an outsider trying to fit in. And you don't have your own people around you. I doubt that if this brother went to Greece with some brothers from the hood or his homies and stuff like that, some black men, I doubt that events would have unfolded like this. His friends would have been there with him in that fight. You wouldn't have any respect in the hood if you were to run away from a fight while your friend is involved in a fight. So I just had to share my thoughts. This is a horrible story. I extend my condolences and prayers to the family. So with that, I'll just say peace and blessings to each and every one of you.